The burnout is perhaps the most quintessential part of any celebration in stock car racing. The moment where the winning driver takes the winning car and burns the rear tires off in a spectacular smoke show. But if you were to ask yourself, who was the first driver to do such a burnout? You wouldn't know. In fact, nobody knows. In American motorsports, there are 4 instances where we can attempt to credit defeat to. The first one we'll cover is perhaps the most famous one.
Look out on pit road. Every man on every crew has come out to the edge of pit lane to congratulate the man who has dominated everything there is to win in this sport.
Dale Earnhardt claimed victory in the storybook 1998 Daytona 500. It was a heroic moment in NASCAR. And overcome by emotion and congratulations, Earnhardt took the black number 3 car and spun it around in the grass to the crowd's enjoyment. At that point, many believed this was to be the first burnout ever conducted after victory in NASCAR. But that isn't correct. Earnhardt became the first person to do it after a Daytona 500 victory. Something every winner does to this day after winning the race. Ironically though, no driver who won the 500 after Earnhardt did this until 2004. Dale Earnhardt Jr., 3 years after his father's death, did the same celebration his father did 6 years later, which set a chain of now nearly 20 consecutive seasons of 500 winners doing the same type of burnout. The only times the winner hasn't done a burnout past 2004 was when the race was weather shortened. Now, donut burnouts are the most well-known style of celebration, but if you're skilled enough, the wheel stand is just as awesome.
He put on an incredible show.
How much of this is also confidence that has been building up for this team?
Well, I think we've been building some confidence. We've had a strong year going. We've kind of been.
This is his high sense move of the race right here, Adam. After you have a dominating car to be able to.
I didn't think he could overcome that much of a distance that late in the race, but
Some have been left to wonder what's left in the tank. If you talk to Jeff, you know that that's just looking at circumstances from the outside.
Now, who is credited with doing the first wheel stand? Many NASCAR fans know the finish to the race that it happened in.
The Childress team trying to go to victory lane for the 2nd year in a row in this race.
We had a photo finish here last race. We're getting ready for another one, folks. Get up off your seats. Here they go.
For 2 in a row, trying to set him up.
Gordon's going to make the big move on the inside when they get down here to turn 3. Slow car might be in the way. Here he comes. He's going to drive it to the bottom.
Oh, Harvick's leaving a lot of bottom open.
The slow car is going to be in the way.
Just like a year ago, he's going to get him, though.
Here
He's
they
going to
come.
get him. Gordon got loose. It's Harvick.
Harvick by
goes.
inches. Harvick by inches. Harvick by inches.
Kevin Harvick wins his first career race in his 3rd start, replacing Dale Earnhardt in emotional fashion. And to celebrate, he does what Mike Joy coins as a John Force style burnout.
Folks, this is Dale Earnhardt's car and team. And Kevin Harvick, the young man Richard Childress tapped, is doing a John Force down the front straightaway.
It is an infamous moment in NASCAR history, and to many, this is the first time they remember somebody doing a wheel stand. But Harvick may not have been the first guy to do a wheel stand in the Cup Series. Going back a couple of years, Jeff Gordon has just won his 2nd Daytona 500. He rolls the car down the pit lane and parks it for inspection. They check the spoiler and he is cleared, to which he drops the clutch and smokes the tires for about 20 yards in a show of celebration.
They made it work for it.
He's just giving a little smoke job coming down through there. Rear wheel spinning, smoke flying out the back of Jeff Gordon's car.
Now, it isn't nearly as big or as spectacular as Harvick's in 2001, but it appears to be a wheel stand. So whilst Harvick made it famous in 2001 and takes most of the credit for it, Jeff Gordon could be tabbed as the first one to do it. So far, stock cars what we've talked about. That's because that's where you usually relate a burnout to. But one man and his smoke shows predate all what we've talked about so far.
A little blue tire smoke there. There is race leader Alex Zanardi. A year ago, victory went to his teammate Jimmy Vasser. Today, it appears it will be Alex Zanardi's turn.
Alex Zanardi was perhaps one of American Oatmeal's hottest drivers in the late 90s, winning an incredible 15 times in a span of 4 years. In his 1997 win at Long Beach, Zanardi gassed up his Honda-powered Target car and spun around in amazing fashion on the narrow streets of Long Beach. This is undoubtedly the first burnout in American Oatmeal, a signature from Zanardi that will never be forgotten. Many Oatmeal fans credit Zanardi with being the first ever to do burnouts in racing in general, and some elitists of the fan base even state that NASCAR stole the idea from IndyCar and Zanardi, whilst IndyCar had to sit back and suffer during their tumultuous split. This next point, however, will undermine all that. Jeff Gordon represented a new wave of drivers charging in the NASCAR of the 90s and early 2000s. He was the first of his generation to take it directly to the old guard and win. From 1994 to 1998, Gordon was the only driver born in the 1970s to win in the Cup Series. He claimed over 40 victories during this time, and after his 1998 championship, he took his Rainbow 24 and celebrated in a way that rewrote the definition of championship celebration.
All right, the second half of the season, Jeff's average finish
I got a
is
burnout
2.1.
50th anniversary right there, Jeff Gordon having himself a big old time out here.
The NASCAR Winston Cup Championship is his.
Hey, he left the logo alone. Look at that. The logo's still fine. He got the lawn only.
Hey, he's almost perfect.
Of course, he's not done yet.
That's in front of the main grandstand.
Gordon's burnout at Rockingham in the fall of 1998 was the only other burnout that year besides Earnhardt's in the 500. This wasn't the first time Jeff Gordon did this, though. We'd have to go back to his first championship in 1995. Gordon had just become the first man of his generation to win the title, one of the youngest champions ever, and breaking a streak of over 10 seasons of a driver over the age of 30 winning the title. He was the youngest modern era champion, so with that, the youngest modern era champion has to celebrate somehow.
On the racetrack, taking a victory lap, and everybody is standing and cheering, and he's looping it here on the main straightaway. That is great.
I didn't think they had enough power to do that, but it did.
November 12th, 1995. The first burnout in Cup Series history. The first one after a championship, and the first of many reasons why people did not like Jeff Gordon in the 90s. While the burnout is widely accepted now, people thought this show of enjoyment was excessive by the 24-year-old, and for some it only embraced the idea that this young, clean-cut California kid needed to have a lesson taught to him by the old guard. But for people open to this new age celebration of talent, it gave them even more reason to cheer for the young phenom. Now, Gordon did the first ever Cup burnout, but he didn't do the first ever burnout. Many credit Ron Hornaday as the first man to do it, during the inaugural truck season in 1995. But the closest he had to a burnout was at Mesa Marin in April. He came off of turn 4 and spun his truck around backwards, and then backed it in the victory lane. But does that count as a burnout? Well, I don't know. That's up to you to decide if that's the first official burnout. I do know, however, that this is a burnout.
Denver, Colorado, just to the west, the first wave of the Rocky Mountains. Denver, Colorado, on the high plains of American sports. Home of the Nuggets, the Rockies, the Broncos, and home of one of the finest short tracks in America.
July 15th, 1995. Colorado National Speedway. The Craftsman Super Truck Series is preparing for a 200-lap show for the fans. Ron Hornaday is on the pole. but he doesn't become a factor in the finish. They're coming down to the wire, and it's Butch Miller and Mike Skinner racing for the win. Miller is trying desperately to hold off the black number 3, and coming to the finish, they make history.
Come out. A lot of heavy traffic in front of them. Don't think it'll come into play, although it might. White flag is out, and here are the leaders going in. They are coming up on some traffic. The T.J. Clark truck there with a lot of smoke coming from it. Butch goes inside, and here comes Skinner from the inside.
Here's Skinner down on the inside, charging for the finish. He puts the fender right in the door of Butch Miller. Here they come out of 4, side by side, to the line.
What you're looking at in this grainy footage is the closest finish in NASCAR history. 0.0001. 1/10,000th of a second. It is a historic moment that is almost completely forgotten to the tides of time in NASCAR history. But that isn't the only historic moment in this race.
An incredible run to the line. Mike Skinner had him standing and cheering. Ford against Chevy right to the finish. And ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in Super Truck history, corner and a big 180. How about it for Michigan's Butch Miller?
All right, is he pumped up?
Short track Saturday night.
Stand clear down there, Mike Joy.
It wasn't Earnhardt. It wasn't Harvick. It wasn't Zanardi or Gordon. And it wasn't Hornaday. It was Butch Miller.